Good evening, everyone. We'd ask that you'd please rise as we welcome the Reverend Dr. Douglas Dent to lead us in an invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Lord, we ask your blessing on our mayor, our city council, and on all those who lead at every level of our city. We ask that you would give them grace to bring truth, justice, and stability to our community. Give them power to do what is right and to rule in fairness. And may our community be known for its justice and its compassion. Let us always prosper from the influence and the service of faithful men and women. This we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, everyone. It is August 1st, 2022, and I will call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council to order. Roll call, please. Here.
Bonnie. Roofer is absent. Thompson.
Here.
Ferguson.
Here.
Josephson is absent. Hicks.
Here.
Fish.
Here.
Paper.
Here.
We have a quorum. First item of business is the approval of the agenda, and we will call on our city administrator, Andrew Bremstack. Good evening, Andrew.
Good evening, Your Honor, council members. Thank you. We have a request to remove item number 10 from the consent agenda this evening. Otherwise, no additional changes or corrections to the agenda.
Thank you for that, and with that, we can approve that agenda.
I'll make that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Anthony.
Second it.
Second with Brent. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. We have no public hearings this evening, no bids to award, and no business under petitions and communications. Under the consent agenda, there are 10 items that we will consider, unless there are others that anyone wants to pull off and discuss individually. Seeing none, I would entertain a resolution passing the 10 remaining items on the consent agenda.
I'll offer that.
Thank you,
I'll second.
Krista. Thank you, Jim. Roll call, please.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Roofer.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Paper.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Item 10 is a resolution approving a conditional use permit for a car washing establishment in the B2 zone at 200 North Tower Road, as requested by Samuel Herzog and recommended by the Planning Commission. Anthony, you had a question on that.
I think I was just kind of curious as to what else does a car wash kind of entail. Obviously, it requires water and sewer, and would the developer be looking for anything else from the city other than just approval to put it there?
Your Honor, Councilmember Hicks, I can speak to that, and Clara can help me out. The only thing they need to operate the car wash is this conditional use permit, which is before you tonight. The zoning on this particular property is B2, and in our zoning code, it indicates that to operate a car wash in a B2, you need a conditional use permit. The developer has not requested any other participation from the city in any way, no tax abatement, TIF, any incentives or subsidies. So with this conditional use permit this evening, they are free to proceed, and all they would need is building permits to proceed with their project.
And for the public, is there anything specific to the conditional use permit that's required within that zone, or does it just state that it needs a conditional use to operate in a B2?
Simply states
Correct. In fact, I believe the Planning Commission, Your Honor, Councilmember Hicks, approved a conditional use permit with no conditions. So just going through the process of the review.
I mean, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that they, because we do charge, I think, for water for car washes.
Yeah.
Because I remember we had a issue with the previous car wash application on that.
Yep, there'll be, Your Honor, Councilmember Hicks, there'll be water access charges and sewer access charges that I believe Brian will calculate at the time, depending on the usage and some of those things. And that'll be paid up front to tap into the city mains for the project.
Thank you.
Would someone like to offer a resolution approving that conditional use permit?
I'll make that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Anthony. I'd like to second that. Thank you, Scott. Any further questions? Roll call, please.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Rupert,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Fish,
Yes.
Ingber.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Under ordinance and resolutions, today we have a first reading of ordinance 30, 8th series, dealing with mobile food trucks. And we'll call on our community development manager, Clara Beck, to give us an update on where that stands before we have a first reading. Good evening, Clara.
Good evening, thank you. Yes, this is also an update about the public outreach that has been done, so I'm going to give you just a little bit of the feedback that I received so that you can make any final recommendations, changes, and we can continue the process of the ordinance update. So, I did a little video that I sent out to interested parties through the Chamber of Commerce and through Greater Fergus Falls's network. And that included included the original ordinance language, the proposed ordinance language, and then a form that the viewer could fill out to send in their comments. And it netted 5 responses, so 3 responses were in support of the changes as they were presented. 1 response was supporting the idea of a license or some sort of a mechanism to address the fact that food trucks do not pay property taxes. And one comment that was received just about an hour before this meeting that I did have time to put in here was about some questions and maybe some discussion points that the respondent would like to see addressed. So we'll just go through some of those. These are the responses that were in support of the changes as they were presented. So some notice that there have been more food trucks around downtown and that they're happy that the city is supporting those food trucks. Penny Cakes is one who came and spoke to council. She also got to review all of the work that has been done thus far, and she supports it as well. And another downtown business also said that they are supportive of the changes. This is the comment that essentially boils down to hoping that the city is paying attention to the fact that brick and mortar stores are paying property taxes, whereas food trucks are not. So just a little bit of a background from this business owner on a business she's owned elsewhere and how she's seen food trucks impact her business specifically. She is in favor of adding the 21-day rule, which is, again, a state rule, but we would be adding language to our ordinance that calls that out. She's happy with that change. So I think she will be happy to know that we are likely going to go down the road of some sort of a license. And these are the new comments that were just received before this meeting. So these are from the owner of Dairyland. If you recall, he also came to one of our meetings early on in this process. So he's wondering about the need for eliminating the downtown district that initially restricted food truck usage downtown, wondering if there have been a lot of food trucks asking to be downtown. To this point, no, we really haven't gotten a lot of food trucks asking if they can be operating downtown outside of a special event. When special events are happening, we see them all the time. So it just sort of depends on what's happening. And he is mentioning that maybe we do keep it to just special events, but I think the fewer restrictions that we're placing and that we're having to enforce, probably the better in this case with food trucks, but I will allow you guys to do some discussion about that. And then he's also questioning the amount that we would maybe charge for a license, wants to make sure that that's a very thoughtful decision and we're not just trying to put a fee on something to put a fee on it. So the staff suggestion is that based on the feedback that we have received, which is that downtown businesses have not come out against the fact that we'd be removing those restrictions. We've just gotten the one question about it. Based on the fact that we had been talking about a licensure, staff is suggesting that we move forward with the ordinance as as the updates have been presented, with possibly one further change that Mr. Kwame noted. We had discussed removing the language about screening of generators. We think that's another point that's difficult to enforce and possibly not something that we need to be too concerned about, so potentially removing that language. And continuing forward with the rest of the changes and going down the path of the license. So that is the feedback that was received. That is the language that's before you tonight. Questions, comments, discussion?
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
As far as the generator comments, my concern was the detail where it says they must be self-contained. And in most cases, the generators are portable and not on the unit. And so I think that just taking out the language about being self-contained would be appropriate. I still think it'd be okay to screen them, though, to help mute the sound and to leave that in there. But I could give that up too. It's not a live or die thing, but I think it would be preferred if it was screened.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Yeah.
I think we just sort of said it has to comply with Minnesota statutes on noise. There is a statute about noise levels. I think it's 80 decibels.
Okay.
And I think we can probably introduce this evening,
Ben.
make these slight changes, come back, still have time to approve it for final reading.
Yep.
Other questions, comments? I think just to echo some of the responses we saw on the screen, to you and your colleagues, thanks for reaching out. I mean, I know people have had the opportunity to weigh in on this, and hopefully we get it right. And whether it's the operators, the businesses, the residents, thanks for taking that extra step to do that. So would someone like to introduce this?
I'll introduce.
Thank you, Krista. Let's see. Item number 2 is a resolution. We'll be looking for that, approving the final Aquatics Center report. And we have a presentation this evening.
I can introduce.
And we'll turn it over to Andrew Bremsat.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Council members. With us this evening is Mark Wenzel from 292 Design Group. He's going to walk us through a quick PowerPoint presentation about the work that they did. And Kent Lawaji from Bolton and Mink is joining us virtually this evening as well. So if folks have any comments or questions after the presentation, we have the right people in the room to answer them. And then the next item kind of ties into next steps related to the Aquatic Center.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I appreciate this opportunity to be here. We've been working on this project for 7-8 months, and I never got a chance to get to Fergus Falls and actually meet any of you. So I always feel like it's better to get a little personally involved with everyone when we attempt to help a city work their way through some future project. I don't know how you're going to run the slides.
I can if you just point to me.
Okay, I'll just point.
do that.
Okay. There aren't too many. It's not too complicated. So originally, first part of this request was to review the study that was done quite a few years ago. So we did that. We reviewed that. We have a team of people involved in this project. Bolton and Mink, your city engineers, are involved. Re-engineered, which is an aquatics consultant. They do the engineering of pool equipment. And Ballard and King, they are an operations and revenue consultant. And then 292 Design Group are architects that specialize in recreation facilities. So the four of us took a look at the previous study and found that it really was pretty inadequately funded. The cost estimates that were prepared for you, unfortunately, were way too optimistic. And of course, with inflation over time, it wasn't, that was just not an affordable project. There are some other issues with it, but that was the main criticism we found in doing it. So instead of just saying, okay, it's done, it's not going to work, we had some discussions about what could we come up with that would be an appropriate aquatic center for the city of Fergus Falls, for a city of your size, that's affordable for you and would provide some interesting and exciting, recreational amenity for the city. So we started working on a design and a process that would be somewhere around 9.5 million. So more than the original funded amount, but considerably less than what the estimate was for that last study for current dollars. So next slide. So through working with the committee and Andrew and folks, they selected Roosevelt Park, which seemed like a good selection to us. There's several advantages to it. We can maintain most of that park without interfering with it. There's parking across the street on Randolph Avenue, which helps reduce the amount of parking that would have to be built, which does two things. It saves green space and it saves cost. So it seemed like a very good site for the project. And this is the site plan of what we came up with. The number one dot there is the skate park that's there today, if that helps you find your spot. The two green dots there are the historic WPA structures, which are both quite handsome, and I think the aquatic center can fit nicely between them. And of course, Randolph Avenue to the north and North Burlington Avenue to the east. So we have two access points to the aquatic center coming off of Randolph and coming off of Burlington. We only provide about 30 parking spaces, but we think on-street parking and the parking at the school will work just fine. And on a peak hot day like we're going to have this week, this place will get pretty busy. The good news is it's multiple people in a car. It's mom with 4 kids or dad with 3 kids, whatever. And so if we have 300 or 400 people here, it doesn't mean we need 300 or 400 cars. So that's the good news about this. And of course, the less parking we build, the better it is for everyone. Next slide. So the main feature here, of course, is what's the aquatic features going to be? What's going to be in here? What's the exciting new stuff to have? So we have what we call 2 vessels, a lap pool vessel and a leisure pool vessel. The lap pool is kind of what you can kind of expect to see. It's a rectangular pool. It's 75 feet long because that's the regulation length for competitive swimming. So if there's a swim club that would like to have races or kids that would like to practice or adults that like to practice and see what their speed is comparative to other competition, they can do that in a 75-yard pool. Doesn't mean this is set up for racing. Doesn't have starting blocks and all that kind of stuff, but it gives people who are used to that kind of swimming the regulation length. It varies in depth to 4 feet at one end to 11 feet at the other end. So there's deep water, so people can dive at the edge. We don't have a diving board, but you can do diving at the edge safely. And have other sorts of things. You could do scuba lessons in here or things like that once you have some deep water at one end. But most of the pool will be about 4 feet deep. So it works well for a water aerobics class, for swim lessons, for playing basketball. A volleyball net could be stretched across here. All those kinds of things could happen in that, the standard rectangular pool you've all seen. Plus, we've added the idea of a climbing wall. You see a picture of one up there. That's one type. You climb up that. When you fall down, you land in the water, safely land in the water, and then you go do it again. So that's the play feature that we've added to that structure, to that pool. The other piece, the piece that people get most excited about, is the leisure pool. And we show you an image of a typical leisure pool. This isn't exactly yours, but it's a picture of one. And generally what we have is a beach type entrance to the pool. So it's shallow from 0 depth to about 18 or maybe it'll get deeper at the slides to about 30 inches deep. So there's shallow water for the smallest of kids to play in up until you get, the junior high kids can play in here too. And then a variety of water features, of which this is going to be, when the project goes ahead and is funded, this will be one of the fun things the committee can work on in the future, is what fun things do you want to put in it. This shows some examples of some water that tumbles and dumps and sprays and all that sorts of things. So we have a budget in there for those kinds of things to happen, but those really aren't decided at this point. And then we have a water slide, and this will be, they show a small slide in this picture. It'll be considerably bigger than that one, what we've programmed in the budget. And then the potential, if the budget comes in well, when we do the project in the future, that we could add a second one. So you might have one that works for 12 and under, and one that works for any age at all, or the bigger kids could do more dynamic or exciting, and one a little more easygoing. So, and of course, there's deck space all around this, which you see kind of in that picture, places to put out lawn chairs and lounges and things like that. And then I think if you look at the upper right of that top picture, you see some umbrella-like structures. We've included a budget for some shade structures so that those not in the water don't get baked watching the people in the water. So, next slide. So, as part of this, we have a bathhouse, which of course is both required by code and necessary to operate the pool. The bathhouse basically has three main spaces. It has a men's changing area, a women's changing area, and a family changing area. And as you go into the building from the top, you see it says check. That's a check-in where you would pay your fee or show your annual permit or whatever you might have. And then you go into one of the three spaces, the men's, the family, or the women's. The family are private changing rooms. I forgot how many we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of them. Sorry, 4 plus a restroom. It's a place so, dad can help his daughter or mother can help their son, or an elderly person or a handicapped person get help by a family member or anything like that. So that's really important today that we have those kinds of private changing spaces. In men's and women's, we have a series of, I'll call them sort of alcoves for changing, so it's a little bit of privacy and rather than one big room. We have private showers, and then of course sinks and toilets and urinals and all those things that are necessary. I might add that everything in this facility, I mean everything, will be ADA compliant, so that it's usable by everyone. And then we have on the left, you see it says ME, that's mechanical space. It takes a lot of equipment to run all the pumps and filters and things for this pool, plus electrical requirements, so that's what happens in there. And then on the right is concessions. It says CONC there, that stands for concessions. So we have concessions can go all over the place. A lot of communities have different opinions of what they want to do. Some places think popcorn and hot dogs and sodas is enough, and ice cream. Other people want to be more adventuresome and make burgers and French fries. This is really a moderately sized and priced concession stand. So we stay away from a grill and all that, but you can do lots of interesting things for your customers to use. It has a support space behind it. And then we have a lifeguard room and a maintenance room with the last 2 rooms on the right. So those are the things that are included in the bathhouse. Then, of course, all this costs money, so we did a cost estimate. Let me preface a little bit about this cost estimate. So we had a construction company we work with, RJM Construction, assist us in the construction. We had a company called Aqualogic, the pool contractor, price out the pool. And then, so we think we're very confident in this estimate being accurate. It was done in, I think we started in March, April. So it's, what's been happening today, it's kind of crazy inflation time. But I think we looked forward enough so that we weren't concerned that this wouldn't be viable next year. So this is really for next year's construction. If it delays longer than that, with inflation, you have to reconsider that. But it's really planned for perhaps starting construction a year from today. And I know this is really hard to read on that screen, I guess, but the total construction cost is $6.8 million. So that's the hard bricks and mortar, pools, etc. And then we add a contingency of $1,377,000 for a total of a number I can't read, 82 something. And then we add soft costs. Soft costs are paying people like me, architects, engineers, survey, soil testing, special inspections, things like that. So that comes to $1.2 million for a total of $9.5 million. I want to point out to you that this doesn't lock you into this project. This is a way of scoping the work. So when you decide to move forward, we have a project that we think will meet an exciting opportunity for the city. Will come in around $9.5 million. And as you work forward, if you decide, well, let's make this part a little bigger, let's make this part a little smaller, you still have freedom to do that. So it's not like this is the design and you're done. So, and I think the last slide, conceptual operating costs. So part of the study, Ballard King are, they're really nationally renowned revenue and operations consultants. They help cities determine what recreation facilities cost to operate on an annual basis. So they compared the potential for revenue, which you would get from daily use fees, annual passes, special events, etc., and what the operating costs would be to operate the facility on an annual basis. Now, I want to emphasize again, they use very conservative figures for cities because the worst thing they could do is make a promise to a city that this won't cost you any money, and it turns out it does. You've all heard of communities that have gotten locked into something that they weren't expecting, and then they're very disappointed with this bill they have. So Ballard King is much more conservative, very careful about this, and so they think the annual operating cost of this facility would be $127,000. So that's the cost to provide this to the community over and above what you can get from revenue. Now, there's a few other caveats I'll add to that. You can discuss as this goes forward again, well, maybe instead of charging $5, we're going to charge $8. And we think the residents will still pay it. Then you can increase your revenues. Now, you might get some fewer people to go. Or you might say, well, if we're going to charge $8, we need to find a way to do some scholarships for people who can't afford that. So you might want to enter that into your discussion. So there's still lots of things to think about to get this where it operates at a cost that you're comfortable with doing. But you should know we're starting out with a number about $127,000. So, okay, now the last slide. So this is an image of what your facility would be like. This shows the bathhouse in the back, the leisure pool, the shade structure there on the right side, a water slide, and then the lap pool in the front. I want to encourage you again to realize that this is just a representation of what you could achieve with the budget we put out and not what we're going to build tomorrow, because we're certainly not there yet by any means. So I think that's it. If I can answer some questions, I would be glad to do that.
Thank you, Mark. Questions?
A question more for Andrew. On the wages, I mean, what are we paying lifeguards now? Well, I know we do it through the Y, but
Yeah, we pay we pay a monthly amount to the YMCA, and the YMCA hires the lifeguard. So I couldn't tell you what they're paying them on an hourly basis.
what do we pay them people that we hire seasonally to mow grass?
We're, depending on how many years of service, we're about $12.50 an hour right now. But that's been moving every year.
Yeah, because I mean, in some of the cost estimates, they're kind of down to $10.50 an hour. I kind of think that's low, but I'm not sure many people work for $10 an hour anymore.
Yeah, I can't answer what number they put in the report without actually reading the report, but I think they're fairly comfortable that they're meeting market wages for, this is high school kids during the summertime, mostly.
Other questions? Report. So at this time, I guess we would be looking for You have anything to add, Andrew?
I do not, Your Honor.
So we would be looking at this stage for just a resolution approving this final aquatic center report.
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll second.
Thanks, Krista. Further discussions? Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Roll call, please.
Tony,
Yes.
Rupert,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Ernst,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Fish,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
A resolution is approved. And then related would be discussion on a resolution calling for an election on a sales tax and use for the city aquatic center as well as D Lagoon Park improvement projects.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor, council members. I will start by saying I'm not going to look for action this evening. We'll take action in 2 weeks because there are a few things we're still working through. But I will present kind of what we have and what we're looking at. We've talked a handful of times now that the council has the ability to put this aquatic center project and the D Lagoon Park improvement project on the ballot in November if they wish to. And if they wish to, they need to pass the resolution that is in the packet, which calls for calls for the election and approves the ballot language. You can see in fairly close to final form exactly what the council needs to approve. I did want to just note, since the last time we brought ballot language forward, we've made a couple of minor changes. One, we added the word park in the D Lagoon project description. So if you're looking at a former draft, you wouldn't find the word park, but thought it was important to ensure that folks knew exactly what that was in reference to. And then we added language at the bottom of both questions that indicates that the total sales and use tax approved by voters at the election to finance the projects and any other project will not exceed 0.5%. And it was important, I think, to make sure that voters understood that if they approve both projects, it doesn't make that tax turn into 1%. It's 0.5%. And depending on if one, none, or both of those projects are approved, that would dictate the time that the sales tax would be in place at 0.5%. One of the things that we were just working through it today, and we didn't have enough clarity to finalize it prior to the meeting, is in both of the questions, you'll see that it mentions if approved, the sales tax would go out to 2037. That's not necessarily accurate because it depends on which are approved. So if both of them are approved, that is the language that we would need, or that would be what is happening, is the tax goes out to 2037. If the aquatic center alone is approved, that the year is different and it's a little bit longer than if just the D Lagoon one were approved on its own. So we're trying to find a way to make that less confusing and crystal clear to voters who may not be as involved or as aware of what's going on. So that's what we're looking to get clarity on in the next 2 weeks. The council will need to approve the resolution. At that time, we'll get that up to Wayne Stein, the county auditor. Statute says we have to have it to him by August 26th. He asked that we have it to him by August 16th, and if we approve this on the 15th of August, that would be accomplished. So that's kind of where we're at with all of that. I know we've talked about it multiple times, but I think it's good for the public to be aware, to be informed, and for us to provide as much clarity and remove confusion as much as possible. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we'll look for your final approval in 2 weeks and hopefully have the language to a place where there's no outstanding questions at that time.
Thanks, Andrew.
Your Honor?
Yes, Anthony?
Would it be possible to put the location on the aquatic center? Because I think a number of people are confusing already the splash pad and the aquatic center projects. To help, or something to identify that it's not a splash pad.
Yes, Your Honor, I think we could include the address.
Right.
There's not necessarily an address, but I think we could include that. Before I say that with certainty, we'll check with the folks that are drafting these for us, which ensure that they comply with Secretary of State standards for the election. But I know in the past, when we did the library sales tax vote, we had the actual physical address listed for the improvements of the library. So I think it's possible. We'll just figure out what that looks like, and that'll be before you in a couple of weeks here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Andrew? All right, thank you, Andrew. We look forward to further discussion. More to come. All right, item number 4 is council input on policy and procedures for disposition of city-owned real estate. And again, we will call on our community development manager, Clara Beck.
Thank you. You all received draft language at the last committee of the whole meeting for the real estate policy. And at that point, you were introduced to it and hopefully have had a chance to look it over and provide any further inputs that you may have before we move this forward. I think what I had specifically asked for was some input regarding whether or not the city will require an appraisal to be done on each property that is brought forward as a potential sale. Do I have any thoughts on that I can include in our draft? Seeing none, may I keep the language as it is then in the draft? Which does mean that we will be performing an appraisal when a piece of property is brought forward, a request is made for its purchase.
I think, Honor, on that, maybe I would, somebody should comment, but I mean, I would think there's a cost, isn't there? I mean, if we're going to do a formal appraisal,
That's why I'm asking the question.
then who's going to pay for it?
So in other cities, it states that the city will pay the cost of the appraisal. And the language that I have in here now is contemplating that the city would pay for an appraisal.
So why are we not happy with kind of like what we've done in the past and having sort of realtor?
Well, that's the question. If you guys would prefer to stick with the realtor, I was trying not to reinvent the wheel and using language that other cities have used, and in other cities that seems to be a standard practice. But what we have done here is we have relied on market studies, so I'm happy to go either way with that language.
You know, it would seem to me, for the sake of discussion, that some properties are going to be different than others. If we have a $10,000 little sliver of land, I mean, I think that the council will probably be okay with a market analysis if there's some real clear distinguishers. But at the same time, if you have a complex sale of a business or some property that's really the public would benefit by having a full-blown appraisal, you would think that the council and staff would be able to figure that, because we do seem to have a lot of very small parcels of land that are less than.
I think, as you say, I don't know how we'd kind of put a ceiling in there, or sort of like if it's greater than,
Or even just say at council's discretion, perform an appraisal.
Yeah. Give us, I think the option to have it there is appropriate.
yeah.
At a minimum, I think should personally have some sort of market analysis by a professional realtor at the very minimum.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that's kind of what we've done in the past, and that's guided us well to this point. But yeah, as you say, if it's going to be complex, then sorry, I was reading.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Okay, does that give you the direction that you're looking for on that one?
It does. And then just on the second page there, so the city has a policy within our charter, or not policy, but charter language that says that there will be 10 days that elapse between a sale being presented to council and then the council acting on that sale. So on the second page there is language about making the sale known to the public in some way, and then receiving comments, or if somebody would like to make an offer of their own, allowing a period of time. I'm suggesting that we match that period of time to the period of time that council has elapsing between the introduction of the sale and moving on a sale, which is 10 days. That also matches with what Planning Commission does for its public hearings. It makes sure that there's at least a 10-day stretch of time where that information is out in the public. I think that probably makes sense and is a decent amount of time for comment. And
Is that 10 days or 10 working days?
I think technically 10 working days. Rolf can.
It's 10 days between a meeting, So it's 10 actual days.
Calendar
10
days.
consecutive
Yeah, so
days.
we can't sell real estate without first introducing it and then waiting 10 full days and having another public meeting for the purpose of selling the real estate to approve a resolution.
So for all intents and purposes, it's gonna be at least 2 weeks.
It is.
Unless we had a special meeting, which would probably not happen unless there was some really strange circumstances.
Correct. If there was something that just absolutely you had to do, stick with the day 11, we need approval, we can always do that. But,
Right.
It has to be introduced at a public meeting at a city council meeting.
yes.
I think that seems very reasonable, though the public, as the media's here, the public has the opportunity to know that the sale's going on, and it seems reasonable.
Okay, so at least 10 days. Okay.
Yep.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Ben mentioned the media, but that wasn't called out in the posting, so to speak. You had listed the website, the council agenda, and a sign-in, and I think that's adequate. So I'm not suggesting that we would require it to be in the paper or in a paper or on the radio or any other means, but to the degree that the media handles it, that's great, but I don't know that we would want to require it. Is that what you were after, or were you looking to actually require it to be published in the paper?
I just,
I didn't think that's what you meant, but when you said the media would be here, that's fine.
There's no requirement under the charter that it be published other than just brought up at a meeting. Oh, is there? No.
no.
What?
Well, I thought you said yes, there is. No.
Oh, no, I did not say that. I just said 10 days.
I think that's
Quietly.
fine.
Yep. Okay, so we're good there? Everyone else
Yep.
good? You have the direction you need?
Yep.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Clara. Tonight, under claims, we have bills in the amount of $1,055,220.30. And we'll look for someone to.
We'll offer the resolution to pay
offer the resolution. Thank you, Jim.
I'll second.
Thank you, Krista. Any questions?
I have one question, Ben.
Uh-oh, you don't have a finance director, and you've got a question. You've got a dilemma.
No, I spoke with Guy Taylor earlier, and this would be one that would fall in his category.
Go ahead.
Among the things that were listed as not a big bill, but a $550 bill to install some motion detectors at Broadway Park. And I thought I'd give Guy an opportunity to tell us about the remodeling work and whatever else you want to tell us about the work at Broadway Park.
Whatever else, okay.
I thought it would open an opportunity for you just to give us a quick 1 minute.
Yeah,
if
so
you
the bathroom structure at Broadway Park was probably a 50-year-old structure and just needed a facelift. So park staff this spring just gave it that facelift. Reworked the design of it, so now the bathrooms, you're entering into the bathrooms from the outside on the south side of the building. The other area that was a warming house when there was a skating rink on that property, that now is a garage. There's an overhead door in the building, and got new siding, new roofing, and just put a good face on a building that had good bones. So it's gotten a lot of good use already this summer, culminating with Big Friday on Friday this week. A lot of good baseball will be played there on the site, and hopefully everybody stays hydrated. It's going to be a hot day. Nice project if you want to take a look at the building.
I think
And on
there's
that
three
note-
members of the, three parents of the Angels that were playing tomorrow
Yep.
night, so anyway, go Angels.
Go Angels. Yeah.
Go Angels.
I just want to say thank you to Pam Muxfelt for coordinating the baseball. I can't imagine the hassle that is, and for the umpires that have given their time to help out. So big thanks to those folks that are involved in that and all the other summer programs.
All right, so we have a motion, motion to offer the resolution, resolution in a second. Any further questions? Roll call, please.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Luther.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Hager.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Under Board Committee and Department reports, we have a Planning Commission transitional housing update. Again, we'll call on Clara Beck.
Thank you. So this is coming full circle after a year, I think, of back and forth. But the Planning Commission, well, in summer of 2021, there was a community organization called the Welcome House that came forward to the city to discuss the option for transitional housing in the R1 zone. A subcommittee was put in place to study whether or not that was the right fit, a community need that needed to be met, and if there should be a zoning update made. So it was membership from both Planning Commission and City Council. Scott Kwame was our member from the council who served on that with a couple members of the Planning Commission. They met twice in January of 2022 and presented council with some proposed changes to the zoning code. Council did not accept those changes and pushed the work back to Planning Commission to take another look. The main issue at hand was whether or not it was the right fit to have that use in an R1 zone. So the subcommittee came back together, included some members of the county who are housing experts and are licensing experts as well for different kinds of transitional housing. Also included law enforcement. Chief Berggren was part of the discussion, just to get a little bit further into it with the smaller group. And the group has now decided that they are not recommending any zoning changes at this point, so nothing new will be coming forward to council from that subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you, Clara.
Stand by the stand.
Under reports from staff and administrative officers, we'll be looking for a motion providing a statement of support from the mayor and city council for an application by Springboard for the Arts for their NEA's Our Town grant program. And I know Michelle is here, and I think Clara will probably want to say a few words as well.
Hey, I'm back. Yes. So the city was approached by Springboard for the Arts. We have been a long-time partner with Springboard through various projects, including we have an NEA grant that they are part of for our downtown riverfront project. So it's a natural partnership. We have watched the Hinge Arts program be very successful over the last several years. I think it's 7 years now, right, Michelle? And they are now going to be entering into a new phase of that program and has brought the city back on board to be part of that. They did some visioning sessions earlier this spring, which I got to be part of, and really excited with the new direction that they are going. Michelle can answer some questions about that direction, but in the memo that I presented, they are going to be engaging with small business owners, creative businesses within the city of Fergus Falls, and including a tourism component as well. So maybe some targeted visits from artists and people interested in the arts who can then come to Fergus Falls, experience the art scene that we have here, while being supported by Springboard for the Arts and the amazing work that they do. So what Springboard is asking for tonight is a letter of support coming from the mayor and from the council that they can then include in their application to the National Endowment for the Arts Our Town program. They are not asking for any kind of a financial match. This is simply a partnership in just the work that will be done. So the city will be part of continued visioning, continued work on the program, but not from any financial capacity. So I will maybe let Michelle answer any questions that pop up, but I think this is a great fit and a great direction for us to go.
Thank you, Clara. Thanks, Michelle, for being here and the work that you've done on this. This is an impactful program. It has been for 7 years to the community. So best of luck continuing it. Anyone have any questions for Michelle? Did you want to talk? Did you want to give us, why don't you just tell us briefly, like, kind of some of the changes in the direction?
Yeah, since I'm here. Good to see you all.
Blandon, she wants to get up there. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just share. Clara gave great context, but after 7 years, as many of you know, the Hinge residency is really centered on the Kirkbride building, and we have done a lot of just evaluation and reflection, and we feel like at this point, the goals we initially set out to fulfill when we first got involved with the Kirkbride, we feel that we've accomplished what we wanted to there in kind of facilitating conversations and storytelling about the Kirkbride building. So we're ready to find some new focus areas, and that's where a lot of the downtown arts and culture organizations come in. The hope with this kind of around Springboard's philosophy of lots of little is to bring artists for short residencies, 4 to 6 weeks, where they can really bring their expertise and energy to different organizations or businesses that want to host an artist. So there will be opportunities for organizations, businesses, and arts and culture groups to get on board and host an artist through this new phase. So I could say more, but that's kind of the general plan. So.
Thanks, Michelle. Anyone have any questions? Someone like to offer a motion, offering a letter of support from the
I'll offer that,
city?
Your Honor.
Thank you,
I'll
Jim.
second that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Tom. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clara. Last item on the agenda for this portion anyway is we're looking for a motion to appoint a city council member to meet with Fergus Falls Township for annexation discussions of 160 acres. Go ahead, Andrew.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. Council members, we have received a request from PPTF LLC to annex 160 acres, more or less. I think it's closer to 162, located off Highway 116. It's Section 29, the northwest quarter in Fergus Falls Township. And the easiest way to accomplish this annexation request is to work with Fergus Falls Township on a joint resolution. We've done this multiple times with multiple townships, and in the past, what we've done is we've designated a city council member to go to the township board, make the request for the joint resolution, and talk about, what we're looking at doing. So what I would suggest this evening is we appoint a city council member to begin those discussions. We'll report back how those discussions are going, and if we have success with that, we will, of course, have a joint resolution to act on in the future. There was a map within your packet this evening. You can see the highlighted parcel there. For reference, it's just south of the ethanol plant off of 116. We're also contemplating as a city to bring in additional road right-of-way and portions of I-94 at the same time to square up the municipal boundary. And to highlight on the map that was in your packet, the red lines are the existing municipal boundaries, and you'll see that the proposed annexation parcel is contiguous to the municipal boundaries in that one corner, which allows us to take this step. So this evening, all I'm looking for is a motion appointing a city council member to start those discussions. Staff will accompany the city council member to the township meeting, and we will see how that conversation goes.
Anyone feel strongly that they'd like to be involved?
Anthony? I can do it. I know Craig. So
Perfect. Thank you, Anthony.
we obviously have conversations with them.
Unless anyone wants to arm wrestle Anthony for that, well,
I'll second that.
Second that, okay.
The last few times, they've just looked at me and.
All right.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was going to suggest that Anthony would be a natural for that because it's kind of a neighbor for your business. But I wondered,
It's
what is the
like a 12-foot
likely...
wall, so you don't get any great ideas about going further north.
What is the likely ward that would fall in? I mean, as it's tacked onto that end of the town, is that 3 or 4? Would it would it likely fall?
3.
Yeah, I mean, likely in 3 on the current map, possibly 4, depending on how it shakes out, but there would not be any, likely be no residents there, so it wouldn't impact any voters.
Okay. Well, I figured if for some reason Anthony didn't want to do it, then maybe someone from Ward 3, if that was it, might have been a good selection. The other question I had is PPTF isn't very descriptive. Do we have any idea what that is or what the purpose might be or how this would be used or, just what's to be gained by this annexation? Or can't you talk about that?
It's the legal name of the property owner is what it is. So this is a petition from the property owner that they would like to come and extend their reasonings. They are not having that available at this point. They're just making an annexation request. And so we're just trying to facilitate the request by doing what we normally do and start the conversation. But I suspect there'll be more information coming.
Very good.
I have nothing to add.
Well, that's fine. There have been other annexations where residents of it have kind of fussed about it and didn't want to be annexed, and there's this kind of split conversation. In this case, it doesn't look like there's more than just a handful of people there, perhaps, and so it'd be relatively simple.
I mean, it would be a 100% property owner petition, because that's what owns it.
Okay.
So you're not asking bringing in other areas other than road right-of-way for 94 to kind of shore up the boundaries to make things a little more square and possibly allowing the city limits to extend along that west or the east of what this area.
Yeah, okay.
Would they be asking for water and sewer in the future? And how do we get that there?
Your Honor, Councilmember Fish, yes, we're not prepared to answer that question this evening, but we are working on that.
Okay.
So this motion just allows us to start the conversations with the township, with more to come, I guess. Is later.
Yep.
So, right.
I'm good.
Good. Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Anthony, for doing that. All right, and there is no old or unfinished business. Couple announcements. Want to make sure that people know the filing opens for city council seats. 7:30 tomorrow morning. Come to City Hall between 7:30 and 4:30.
7:30 and 5 the next 2 weeks.
5 next,
Fridays it'll be from 7:30 to 11.
and that opens tomorrow, August 2nd, closes August 16th at 5 o'clock.
If somewhere in the middle of there, we have a primary election next week as well.
That's right. Primary election polls open at 7, remain open till 8 p.m. That's August 9th. There is some changes, so make sure people, if they have questions about your polling place, they can call, right? We can help them get them directed to the right place. Get out there and vote. Next city council meeting, 2 weeks, August 15th. Anything else from anyone? If not, we're going to adjourn to a closed session to discuss pending or threatened litigation based on attorney-client privilege permitted by Minnesota statute section 13D.05. And we will not be reconvening, and so we're adjourned.